everybody. Welcome to Thursday, TLDChat Thursday. I always forget what day it is. Every morning we do this, but it's a good day to be here, TLDChat, because we have a fantastic guest, and he's jumping into the chat already. Dr. Will Thalheimer is hanging out with us, so we'll get to him shortly and have a fantastic conversation about maybe all those myths and some good research stuff and all that stuff that we like to hear about and have conversations about in the training, learning, and development industry. And so speaking of that, we are the Training, Learning, and Development Community Chat and Conference. And thanks for joining us. Today we're having a fantastic growth spurt in our community, which is fantastic. We like to see so many people joining us, and it's fun to see everybody sharing with their peers and seeing new faces pop into the chat and helping this community grow and have a place for people to come and really learn from each other, share what they know, and for us as a community to get better at the work of training, learning, and development. Before we jump in, let me just remind everybody about the event coming up in January, the TLDC 18. We skipped 17. We launched this thing in 16. So we had TLDC 16. Some of our attendees and speakers are here in the chat if you want to ask them questions about it. But TLDC 18 is going to be in beautiful sunny Phoenix, Arizona, January 29th and 30th. And we are looking forward to that. For sure. If you want more information, just reach out to me. I'll talk you through it. We're going to be launching some new speakers, some new information, some new content that we've pulled together very, very soon. So stay up to speed on that by signing up for the newsletter, of course. The newsletter can be found at tldc.us. Get hooked up, get all the information you need. We will not spam your mailbox, but we will tell you all of the cool things that are happening in the industry and with TLDC and what is happening next. And also, we have a new newsletter going out, the weekly roundup, that will tell you everything that happened last week so you can catch up on all the cool things that you missed. And we also have a fantastic membership platform for you to join as well. TLDChat, as I've always said, will always be free because that's what I believe in. When we hang out here and join together as a community, this should always be free, and so we will keep it that way. But what we ask everybody to do, instead of us holding out the cup on the side of the street saying, hey, throw us a couple bucks and help us with the infrastructure and help us provide you more value, we just decided to put together a membership plan that I think is extremely valuable and allows us to continue to be value add to you in the industry. So you can check that out on the Join Us link at tldc.us. If you check it out here and click on Join Us, you can check out this membership. So you may be wondering why I am cruising through the announcements so fast today. And that reason is our guest. Our guest, Dr. Will Thalheimer. Let's just jump right in and just invite him to the screen real quick here and say hi.
Me?
How's it going, Will?
It's going great, Brent.
Yeah, I like to have a little bit of fun here. Everybody makes fun of me for my soundboard, but you know, hey, if I don't get to have,
I think it's great.
If I don't get to have a good time, then you know, why am I here, right?
Exactly. Especially if you're going to be, you know, the leader of us.
Oh, well, you know, I certainly do not want to claim that role at all. I'll facilitate our conversations and our community and help us all do this, but don't give me that L word.
Come on.
That gives.
Don't shy away now,
no,
Brent.
I'm gonna start turning red and match my pink shirt here in a minute if you don't stop. So anyways, hey, listen, tell everybody who in the heck you are. Some people are new to the L&D community that have joined our community here at TLDC. And so they may not know your epic stature in the industry. So tell us all about it.
Well, okay. So I'll start out with this. A friend of mine gave me this, and I forgot to bring my coffee, but.
Oh, excellent. I love it. I'd vote for you.
Yeah, thank you. You and my mom would maybe do that. Okay. So, all right. So I've been in the training and development field, what we used to call the training and development field, now the learning and development, or learning and performance, or talent development. New names, same package
right,
in some sense. So I hear an echo. Is that something that
you do?
You're hearing?
Here, let me turn some stuff down here real quick. That's probably on my side. That's good.
No echo on. Okay, if they're not hearing it, that's fine. I can deal with the echo.
Okay.
Echo.
I hope it's not too bad.
Yeah. So I've been in the field for 30 years now, and for the last 19 years, I've been doing my work learning research thing. And what I try to do is to bridge the research side and the practice side in the workplace learning field. I found that there's wisdom in both camps, but oftentimes the two groups don't speak. The researchers don't speak to the practitioners and vice versa. So I sort of set out many years ago to try to bridge that gap. I saw us sort of jumping from one fad to another and hanging on sanctimoniously to things that didn't work that well. So tried to do the research to practice things. So that's what I've been doing in a nutshell. That involves a lot of things. So, my goal is to take the research. And so almost every year, I read over 200 articles from the scientific refereed journals on learning, memory, and instruction. And I translate that research for practitioners. So e-learning developers, trainers, instructional designers, chief learning officers, etc. And bring that research into the work that I do. So keynotes, speaking, workshops, learning audits. So I'll do research benchmark. I'll go look at an organization's learning intervention, whether that's an e-learning program, classroom training, or even on-the-job learning, and say, hey, this is how you're aligned with the research. This is how maybe not so much, and here's some recommendations. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, and you do have a couple books and some writings on some of this stuff. Let's just, let's be sure to share those right out the bat, and we'll do it again later too. What's the latest?
Sure. Well, over the years, what I've tried to do is to create research to practice reports. They're available on the Work Learning Research website, and I give those away for free. Last year, I published a book called Performance Focused Smile Sheets, a radical rethinking of a dangerous art form. And I've been having a lot of fun with that. People coming to me and saying, hey, can you help us redesign our learner feedback questions so that we're getting better information.
Yeah, so, fantastic. And I can absolutely tell everybody it is a fantastic read and well worth it. So check it out. If my helper's in the chat, if you want to find it on Amazon, or he's got a website. So great. Kara, you are on the ball. Thank you very much. And don't be shy about pasting your links into that chat window there, Will. It's all.
I've got people doing it for me. This is great.
We've got it all in the chat. These people are fantastic helping us out. So we've got a good crew here. But just before we move on to the next question here real quick, and we keep chatting, that echo might be if you've got maybe two windows open to Crowdcast, or if you're trying to watch yourself as we broadcast at the same time. I don't know what you got there, but I just wanted to throw that out as a possibility for the echo. But But are you still hearing it? Oh, okay, good.
No.
Because because no others aren't hearing it, and I just didn't. I know how hard that echo can be. It messes with your head while you're trying to talk. So good. So as long as that's gone, then we are fantastic in the spot to move on. So I have to harken back, and maybe somebody, maybe Kara, can you do a quick search, or Luis or somebody, for what did I call it when you and I got together with Clark Quinn, and we called it like the ultimate instructional design smackdown or something like that, and you two debated. What did we debate? I can't even remember now. Is instructional design dead?
Was it the
it was the
Kirkpatrick model, maybe?
model. Yes, indeed. So anybody that's interested in hearing that conversation, there is we do have a recording out there somewhere, and it was awesome. It was awesome. Two different perspectives on Kirkpatrick, for sure. So give us maybe let's start there, because I kind of primed everybody for a little bit of our conversations, and the research is a really big deal to everybody here as well. So tell us your thoughts on Kirkpatrick.
Well, so the Kirkpatrick model, most of us know it's the 4 levels. So level 1 is getting learner feedback. Level 2 is measuring learning. 3 is measuring on-the-job behavior, and 4 is measuring the organizational results. So that model is in our consciousness. It's funny. I sort of often talk about it and say, look, whether you love the Kirkpatrick model, or whether you hate it, or whether you like it for some things and not for others, one of the things we must realize is that it sort of captures the way we think and controls and puts us in a little box the way we think about learning measurement in the workplace learning field. There was a research review a couple of years ago in a top-tier scientific journal, and they said, well, something like the Kirkpatrick model is antithetical to nearly 40 years of research on human learning, leads to a checklist approach, and they went on very negatively. But at the same time, they said, we probably recommend that you still use it when you talk to others, because that's what everybody knows. So in some ways, we're sort of stuck in that box a little bit. My thing about the model is that I think models should sort of convey the right connotations. And unfortunately, it's often interpreted in ways that are not helpful to us. So one thing, it seems to suggest that level 4 is better than level 3, which is better than level 2, which is, kind of crazy in a way, because what do we as learning professionals have the most leverage over? And that is, whether the people have learned. And so if we're not measuring that, in fact, let's say we do measure level 3 and 4 and we have a problem. Well, don't we need to have measured the other things so we know where our problem came from? Maybe the learners were not motivated. Maybe they couldn't remember. Maybe they didn't understand in the first place. If we only measure level 3 and 4, then we focus on that. And the Kirkpatrick model is completely silent on remembering and decision making. So we measure level 2, but I used to call like scenario-based questions lovingly level 2.5, right? Because most of the time when we measure level 2, we're using trivial questions, and those aren't very useful. In fact, they often send the wrong. Just because people can memorize facts and terminology doesn't really mean they can actually do anything or can make a decision. So, if a model is silent on some of the most important aspects of what it's supposed to be helpful for, then, we got.
Yeah. So where would Marco Fecchini? I don't know if you know Marco or not, but he's doing some cool stuff in the UK. With virtual reality, and it just sort of dawned on me as I was watching him, in the chat there, and I started thinking, where do we put, if we're able to create a virtual space that looks exactly or as close to a real environment is possible, and somebody is able to go into that space and practice over and over and over again how to do a particular task or whatnot, where would that fall in the models? Would that be like a 2.5, you think, or?
Yeah, it might even be 2.75, right? 2.75631. Yeah, I mean, the thing about level 2, well, it's supposed to be a measure of learning. Well, what does that mean? Oftentimes we measure what's easy to measure. So, Sharon Schrock and Bill Coscarelli have a really nice taxonomy of learning measurement. And they say, I think level A is measuring in the real world. So if we want to measure someone's ability to drive a forklift, we put them in a forklift, and we put them in a forklift in the actual warehouse where they're going to be doing their work. So that would be real world. That would be the top level. That would be best. That would give us the best idea of whether they're competent. If we can't do that, we go to level B, which is we simulate. So, virtual reality, if it's well done, if it's not like Second Life or something.
Marco's stuff is way better than Second Life.
Anybody remember Second Life?
That right now. Let's clear that up.
Okay, great. So I have to laugh when originally there's so much hype around that, and I went in there and I'm like spending like hours trying to figure out how to get around it. This is not useful. But anyway, so level B is simulation. Level C is scenario-based decision making. Level D is memorization questions. So that's about, knowledge and terminology. And they have some other levels as well that are really not, that are so far off that I won't even mention them. But yeah, that something like virtual reality is much better assessment. Now there is some, you have to be careful there. One of the big biases that we have in learning measurement is when we measure. So if you teach a bunch of people something and you measure them right away, well, everything's top of mind. So it's very easy for people to recall it. But that's not the way their mind is going to be in the real world. If they, a couple days later, they get back to the workplace, or they get out of their e-learning program, they're in the work, they're doing something, or a week later, two weeks later, a month later, people aren't going to be able to sort of recall that as easily. So any immediate tests that we do, in some ways they bias, our results. They make us look better because we know that people are going to slide down the forgetting curve. When we say, actually started just this week, I'm started working on a new level model, and I already have like 12 levels. So yeah, it's going to be scary. But it's very interesting. I was at a conference on educators in the legal field, and the way they evaluate is how much time you've spent in a learning program, right? Which we know is really not that great of a measure, right? Because they could be there and not paying attention. They could be there and not learn anything. They could be there and be confused. They could be there and get it, but then forget it later. I mean, there's lots of issues. So, I think we need a better way to sort of categorize our competence or our ability to create
so that
good learning
you brought up
results.
a great point, and I think this needs a little bit of research clarification. So the forgetting curve piece of it, right, and spaced repetition and all of that, we all talk about it a lot, and there are lots of new ways of kind of supporting that, and tools and people you sort of clinging on to that as sort of the new thing that maybe we haven't done before. Well, what does the research say, and are we doing the right things, and have you seen it implemented well anywhere?
Sure. So well, just so people know, the forgetting curve is basically the finding that after people learn, their memory tends to fade with time, and over time they forget more and more until they stop forgetting. But it's rather steep at first, and then it gets longer. I will add this extra thing that people ought to know, that if somebody tells you that people are going to forget 90% of how much they learned in a week or 50% in 24 hours, those numbers are completely bogus. It really depends on your learners, how much they know, how good the instruction is, etc. But anyway, there is this thing, we're going to tend to forget stuff, right? We are in the golden age of learning research. In the last 10 to 15 years, researchers have found some really strong recommendations for how to help people learn and how to help people remember. I like to talk about three things that really support long-term remembering. One is to put people in realistic contexts, like simulations. Second thing is give them retrieval practice. Have them practice retrieving information from memory. The simplest way to do this is testing, but testing isn't as sophisticated as we'd like it to be. Decision-making, simulations are better. And then the third thing is the spacing effect. Spacing repetitions, particularly of realistic retrieval practice over time, is best. So the question you asked is, how are we doing with this? Well, it's interesting. In 1992, these two researchers, Bruce and Bayrick, they counted up all the articles that were written in the scientific literature on the spacing effect. And they found that there were over 300 of them at that time. And now every year, there's at least 10 more articles, because scientists are really fascinated. Why would this be so? Why would it be that if you space a repetition over time versus giving people the exact same repetition over less time, why would that create long-term remembering? And they haven't fully come to an answer. There's a bunch of theories on that. But I raise this because it's interesting. Yep. We've known about this for a long time, right? The spacing effect. And yet it's only been in the last, I would say, 5 years that this has really taken off in the learning field, particularly in the e-learning space and mobile learning space. You might have heard the term microlearning. Well, yeah, every now and then. Yeah. Okay, it's just the hottest topic in the field right now. All right. Well, there's two aspects to microlearning. And a lot of people are pitching microlearning as, yep, short videos, so sort of just-in-time learning. And that can be fine if you're I'm dealing with Microsoft Excel and I forget how to do something and I go take a quick video and I get it. Okay, that's sort of just-in-time learning. But the other aspect of the microlearning idea utilizes spaced repetitions. I coined a term many years ago called subscription learning, and people can go to subscriptionlearning.com and check it out. I'm not selling anything there. I'm just advocating for this idea that we could enable our learners to subscribe to a thread of short learning events. And ideally, you'd want to use the spacing effect. And again, the spacing effect is not just spacing learning over time, but spacing repetitions over time. And I don't mean exact verbatim repetitions, because those are boring, right? But you can repeat things in a number of different ways. You can use different media. You can ask questions with different background information. You can use animations or whatever. There's many ways to repeat things that aren't boring. But the spacing things over time is really powerful. If you go to the subscription learning website, and I haven't been able to keep this up to date because because I'm busy with other things, number one, but also because the field is exploding. These technologies are exploding. There's many, many of these tools out there that help you do spaced repetitions, yep, particularly, with our cell phones, okay? We're still in the pioneering phase. We're still making a lot of mistakes. But this is going to be one of the most important tools in the instructional designer's toolbox going forward. Now, it's, let's not go crazy and do this only. We have a tendency
to throw stuff away when we find new things to cling on to, don't we?
Let's use it. We do. So, go check out that list if you want. Send me an email if you want me to add anything to the list. And I don't always do it right away, but I really would like to keep it up to date. Yeah, someone I can see in the chat mentioned Duolingo. That was the first one I started talking about because it won Apple's App of the Year one year. It's really great. My wife is using it. You know, she's up to 12% fluency.
What language is she learning?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
excellent.
it's great. German. Well, she used to know it. Well, she used to know Swiss German, and now she's, you know, she forgot it of all.
Yeah, so
now she's trying to relearn it. And just, you know, in case we have to leave the country quickly, you know, in case there's maybe like a political problem or something.
But it's interesting. So I think this whole spacing effect and you know, subscription learning, the idea and all of that, I remember talking about this actually a long time ago when RSS feeds, right? When the RSS technology first came out, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, finally a technology that could allow us to do it, right? It was a very simple technology. We couldn't add like timing to it and all of the cool new stuff that like Duolingo can do and what can be coded now. But back then, just the idea of being able to, the way I always worded it to people was basically subscribing into somebody's brain. You know, if somebody was writing a blog post, back in the day, that was all it was just text, right? We didn't have all the cool video and multimedia, but I just remember thinking, man, this is so powerful. You take a subject matter expert or somebody passionate about something, they're willing to share it, and I can literally subscribe to everything that they write down. And if they're basically writing down everything that they just currently happen to be thinking, and they're doing it on a regular basis, for all intents and purposes, you're kind of subscribed right directly into their head. And to me, that was a fantastically powerful tool that I thought was just going to take the world by storm, right? And take learning by storm. And of course, you know, I would give presentations on it at events, and I talked and I tried to promote the heck out of RSS, and it just kind of went, you know, nobody ever really, you know, picked up on it. So I don't know if it was too techie or what the deal was, but it was before its time, maybe.
Well, that's a great example. And I will admit, I signed up for a lot of RSS feeds, and for a while there, I was, you know, they were coming into my Outlook, and I was paying attention. And you know, it's hard to pay attention. Let me take you back to an older technology, though. People, I don't know if people remember this, but there was this used to be this thing called magazines, and yeah, well, this is where I got the idea. I used to, you know, I'm starting a consulting practice, and I was an entrepreneur, and I needed to learn how to run a business, and I'm still learning that, but I still need a lot of help on that. But you know, I subscribed to like Inc. magazine and Wired and a few other things about, you know, how to run a small business. And, you know, I subscribed for a few years, and I noticed that some of the same themes would come up over and over, not always by the same author, but by different authors. And after like 3 years of doing this, I realized, well, I don't need to read Inc. magazine anymore, because I've got spaced repetition so much that it's all top of mind for me, and I'm good to go. But you know, I think, you know, if you think about, you know, learning over time, the apprenticeship model, even take us further back, you know, the apprentice basically had to sign on for a long period of time so that they would have enough repetitions and practice so that they could become a master tradesperson, right? Same thing. It's a fundamental aspect of human cognition. We need repetitions. We need them spaced over time.
Yeah, it really
to get
is,
really
you
good
know,
at something.
and you know, that, I guess that's the part I was really trying to get at, and then I sort of went off the rails in my own mind. But basically, we need to change our thinking as instructional designers, right? Because we've got decades of learning how to design events, right? One-shot events, whether it's a classroom event, whether it's an e-learning event, right? Somebody sitting at their computer by themselves consuming something for an hour or whatnot, or, you know, we design an event and then we kind of let it go, and it's like, good, we're done. We designed that so well because we're such smart instructional designers that they should know everything they need to know, and now they can go work. And we haven't yet figured out how it is that we design these long-term learning solutions and experiences, right? And maybe it does mean, to your point earlier, maybe it does mean that we need to get better about creating a whole bunch of micro learnings on the same topic, and we have systems that allow us to spread those out to folks over time. Maybe that's the sort of the new future of the instructional designer. I don't know. I mean, obviously, like you said, we're in this very big transition period trying to figure all this stuff out, but I think that is something in our industry that we need to accept and figure out how it is we apply all of this that we know, all of the research that you talk about and share in these new and different ways. And that redefines the work that we do and the final output, right? As an industry, as a product, as a thing that we create, it's changed, and yet we are slow to accept it, it feels like.
Well, you mentioned the key word, and that is event. We have an event focus. We try to create a 90-minute e-learning event. We try to create a 2-day face-to-face classroom event, right? Even when we, get a little bit more creative, we create for example, in the leadership development field, I remember, and I used to be a leadership trainer. I ran a leadership development product line. So one of the programs I taught was the learners would come in for a week into the classroom, learn a bunch of stuff. They'd go back for a month into the workplace, put some of it into practice. They'd come back for a week, go back to work, et cetera. That was a series of events, right? We tried to get them to do work as well. Yeah, I think we need to experiment. Right. So the first thing people are trying is to add subscription learning nuggets after events. Right. And, I think that's a good starting place. But I like to think that, well, let me back up a minute. There are some benefits to events. Right. You take people away, you get them to focus, you get them away from their distractions. You get them to be networking with other people. You get them to be learning from other people. So the idea of completely getting rid of those events is probably, too much.
Yeah, let's clear that up.
No, any calls for training is dead. I just want to show. Okay. Yeah, right. It's not going to happen. But, just think about leadership development. You take people away for a week and they go to a leadership development course. And maybe we even do some good things to get them to try to implement it back on the job. Well, that's one way to do it, and that's been, somewhat effective. But leaders can learn every day, right? And, maybe we develop programs where it's not just sort of general purpose, but for the next month, you high potential leaders in our ABC organization, we're going to focus on how to champion change, how to be more creative. That's going to be our focus for maybe this month and the next few months. We're going to actually not only give you some of these nuggets, and we're going to have a facilitator to go along with this to help you out, to help you overcome obstacles, et cetera. But we're actually going to try some things that the CEO wants us to do. We have this new change checklist for every meeting. Right? We're going to try to make our meetings more innovative, more creative, enable creativity. So we're going to do that for the next 3 rounds of our staff meeting. Everybody in the organization is going to do that. And then maybe 6 months down the road, okay, we did pretty good on creativity and innovation. Now we're going to go on to, how to deal with conflict or whatever it is, right? And you sort of have these cycles of focus. Now, again, we're in the pioneering phase.
Dysentery.
Some of us are going to die along the Oregon Trail. But, somebody's going to figure this out, and it's worth trying because we know that you know, the old
Exactly.
things we were
And
doing
one of those
weren't as
old
effective as
things
we
I
might
want us to
have
talk
wanted them
about
to be.
shortly, but I'm going to take a quick break here, but I'll tease it with, we've got to hear you tell us a little bit about learning styles. That's popped up in the conversations a few times, but hold on to that thought and think about how we're gonna talk about that particular myth. It's a popular one to talk about. So hold on to that real quick while I jump us back to a quick screen share and say thank you to everybody in the chat for being here today. Thanks for supporting us at TLDChat and TLDC in general. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Quick shout out to Luis and Kara and Craig and those of you who go the extra mile helping us out, making this happen. We really, really do appreciate it. Again, we're working on providing you guys extra value all the time, and your support is much appreciated. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you very, very, very much. I forgot to mention one particular event that I absolutely want to give a quick shout out to. We, of course, have our event coming up in January, but I work for a company now called EdCast, and they have a summit event that's coming up in Santa Clara, California, that is packed with some fantastic executives from some Fortune 500s, and it's a short day event. It's basically a day and a half, but it's a full day. And so you are basically rubbing elbows with some of the highest level executives in some of these companies, pushing the limits and actually implementing the future of learning and all of these things that we're talking about. I can tell you some of these companies are actually working very hard at implementing a lot of the newer styles, and they're the ones that are taking the risks and going out on the edge. So hearing from them is fantastic as always. And then of course we have Charles Jennings, who will be there. Kevin Oakes will be there from the I4CP, and Josh Burson from Burson by Deloitte will also be talking. So lots of folks there. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you want a shot in the arm and of some really, really smart folks doing some cool things, let me know offline, and I'll get you hooked up and get you connected. Probably easier this late notice for those of you who live in the San Francisco-ish Silicon Valley area. But if you are excited enough about it to book a quick flight and to head out there, I can help you with that as well. We've got some discounts on hotels and things like that that we can offer you. But anyways, let me know if you're interested in that, and I will let you know. You can find out more about it at edcast.com. Just click on the summit link at the top, and you can find out about that. So again, thanks everybody for being here today and enjoying an hour with the wonderful and fabulous Will Thalheimer. And I always love chatting with you, Will. We don't ever get a chance to talk enough, I'll just say. You're a busy guy, so I get it. Reading 200 refereed journals takes time, and so we have to give that to you. Yeah, there we go. It's all good. It's all good. All right, so here we go. Let's kick this part of the show off. We've got about 20 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes to hammer this out. And maybe it'll be quicker than that. Maybe there is one succinct bullet point that we can make and put this pony to bed. So what is the deal with learning styles? Oh, cool. Okay.
Well, okay. So before I get to learning styles, I had a chance to go through the chat. Great comments, everybody. Thank you very much. That's great. So learning styles, it's the idea that people learn differently, which is certainly a truism. But researchers have done a lot of work on this over the years and have found that if we try to design our learning based on the learning styles notion, that it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And there's, I don't have my quotes in front of me. I do this thing called the Learning Research Quiz Show. And it's sort of a face-to-face thing. Takes about, I don't know, 75 minutes, 90 minutes, or 60 to 90 minutes. And I ask a bunch of questions, and one of them is about learning styles. And often a lot of people are drawn to them, have been taught them, see that as a perfectly legitimate way to go. But then I show the research reviews, and they, some of them burst into tears. Seriously, Are you serious? Are you telling me learning styles aren't real? I like to use the analogy of kittens on YouTube. They're soft, they're fuzzy. It feels right. It feels good. Learning style seems right, but the research, the hard science on it, just suggests that it's not a good way to go. And there's a couple problems with it. Number one, there's more than one way to divide people on their individual differences. In fact, I think somebody counted like 60 different varieties of learning styles. It's not all the most famous one is, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I've always wondered what the olfactory learner would be like, but that's a different story. Yeah. And then there's, like if my surgeon, right? I'm going to go in for surgery. I don't want someone who studied how to do surgery in a podcast. I want them to know what that knife, what the scalpel feels like going through the skin and all that stuff. So there's a lot of reasons that this, if we break it down, it doesn't make sense. So, any focus on trying to divide our learners into different types and giving them different things usually doesn't work. There's one exception to that rule, and that is making sure that we give people information at the right level. So they have prerequisites, knowledge, or that we build them up, so they scaffold them up so they can really understand what's going on. That's the sort of one individual difference that's consistently one that we should focus on, right? We don't want to give
So how do we explain then that
meant for a novice and vice versa? Because you're not going to help either.
Because people do like the fuzzy kittens because they feel like they get it. They feel like it makes sense, right? Like some people like to read books, and so and then others hate it, and so then the ones that hate it, maybe enjoy watching movies more often or whatever, and it kind of makes me feel like that early idea of learning styles came from something that people really do feel, and it does tend to make sense. So how do we explain that then? And what's a better way for us to help people understand?
Okay, that's great. That's a great question. So, certainly people have preferences, right? And that's always going to be. But that doesn't mean, and people have tried this over and over, there's like these 6 or 8 research reviews over time that showed when you do try to break people into these styles, it doesn't help them that much. And that doesn't mean that, you shouldn't be, open to what your learners have to say, and what they think and feel, and design a little bit around that. But what the researchers say is that there are learning factors that we do know that have been proven by research. So if you're going to spend your instructional design energy, you ought to use these learning factors, and these are things like the things I already talked about. So retrieval practice, context alignment, spacing, giving the right kind of feedback at the right time, using variety. I have this list I call the 12 most important learning factors, the decisive dozen. These kind of things are so fundamental that we ought to focus on them first. And there's a lot of great books on this. There's Make It Stick. There's Julie Dirkson's Design for How People Learn. There's Urban Myths About Learning and Education if you want to know what to watch out for. There's a lot of really good nonfiction books on this topic right now. Those are the kind of things, these learning factors that we ought to be focusing on as opposed to the learning styles. I'll tell you one more thing about learning styles. About 8 years now, or almost 10 years, I made a challenge. It was a $1,000 challenge. If anybody could develop a piece of learning that utilized learning styles and found positive results, that I would give them $1,000. A couple of years ago, several other people said, "Will, we want to join you." And so now it's up to $5,000.
People out there selling
no one has
learning
come
styles
forward.
as a valid idea. Nobody's been able to come to you to collect the $5,000, huh? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Well, yeah, it's it is quite an interesting topic, because it does come up all the time, and I think these days it mostly comes up with people making fun of it more than anything else. But I want us to have a real legit conversation about it. So I appreciate you telling us and giving us the research and the data on it, because it has such a strong foothold in people's minds, especially still in just in academia and within K through 12 circles. I think teachers, still grab onto this, and I've heard it even mentioned in the corporate learning space a lot over the last few months, even in going through RFPs with different companies and sitting there and having them ask us to say how we support learning styles in our product. And I just have a hard time even following that line of thinking with them, but we do our best to be respectful of their request and answer those questions. Yeah.
Hey Brent, I gotta tell you, I'm getting a lot of positive.
Can we have you as a regular? I'd love it. All right, cool. We'll do the standing Will Thalheimer hour. How about that?
That's so fun. Yeah. Well, let me add one thing to the learning styles thing.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Well, what are the only others? Let's go. Let's do those. Oh well. First, let me remember to mention that I started this thing called the Debunker Club. It's debunker.club. You can go there, sign up. I haven't been as active on there as I'd like, but you can go there and sign up to be a debunker if you like. And I think I'm going to have I'm going to start a Twitter chat. And my first Twitter chat is going to be a debate about the 70-20-10 idea, and I'm not going to talk about that here today. I think it's a great debate because there's really good arguments on both sides of the issue, but that should be fun. So if you sign up for the Debunker Club, you'll hear about that. But there's many more myths. So one of the myths I talked about. I originally started talking about this in 2002. It's the most popular link on my blog. Every day, there's like hundreds of people that go to this one link. And it's the idea that people remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, et cetera. And the numbers always change. But, I trace this back to an employee of the Mobil Oil Company in 1967 who shared this information with no research backing whatsoever. But then 3 academics approached me a couple years ago and said, "Hey, Will, we'd like to really trace this back. We think it goes further back than 1967. So they asked me to join them. And so we actually published a series of articles in a scientific refereed journal about that. And it turns out it goes back to like 1913 or 1922. And the information is, every day there's a new example of this on the internet. Oh yeah, it's just amazing and terrible. So that's one. Let me ask your listeners, what do you think about neuroscience and learning? Do you think I'll give you some choices. Neuroscience is the most important
source of information for learning design. So most important, very helpful, choice B. Not so helpful, choice
I can actually put that
C.
into a poll.
Okay?
Let me do that.
What do you think?
Hold on a second, and then we can get the real stuff. So what do you think about neuroscience? Okay, what was the first option?
I don't know. What did I say?
Okay,
Number one would be the most important source of information.
Source of info. Okay, great. What would number two be? Like, okay.
A valuable source. And number C would be not that helpful.
Not that helpful. Got it. Okay, we're in. Everybody hit up the poll section and start clicking.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting some.
Everybody's taking the safe choice. Well, there, you know, B is always the safe selection, right? You can wiggle your way out of B. The other two, yeah, not so much.
Wow.
It's like saying it depends.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, it looks like we have, you know, only 3 choices, but it looks like we have the bell curve. Yeah. That's so funny. Okay, so I got very curious about this, and I've been following this, and I went to the neuroscientists themselves and asked them what they thought. And not all of them, but many of them said, you know, neuroscience really isn't ready for prime time. In fact, one, John Medina was quoted as saying, you know, we don't really know all that much about the brain. The folks that did Urban Myths About Learning and Education almost had the exact same quote. There's some debate. My conclusion, based on looking at what they said and reading articles on neuroscience as applied to learning and education, makes me think that neuroscience has promise for the future. But at the current time, it does not really tell us anything more than what we already know through our regular cognitive behavioral psychology and research, our learning research. If you search Thalheimer and neuroscience, certainly you will find my blog post on this. But I don't.
Yeah, lots of fantastic feedback. But yeah, so that is a great place, an interesting teaser for us to end our conversation today, and a really good reason to bring you back to talk more about that, I think, because I think there are a lot of folks here you know, who would like to have that conversation, right? And go a little bit deeper on it. But we're getting pretty close to that 9 o'clock hour. And I just want to give you a chance to tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and reach out, and any particular websites you would like them to go to.
One of the things that I've done over the years is just create a number of websites. But my blog is will@worklearning.com. My book on Smile Sheets is
Twitter handle is willworklearn, right?
Yeah, at willworklearn, right? Subscriptionlearning.com, learningaudit.net. If you're interested in learning audits.
Yep.
But if you go to any one of these, you'll find the other links all over the place on there as well. So.
You're not a hard person to find, I don't think. Awesome.
And there's my link
Thanks for
about the
hanging out with us
neuroscience
today.
one,
I
so,
really appreciate you coming in. We've been trying to do this for a while, right? Yeah. So I'm glad to have you back on. It was that video
yes.
that Kara posted of our great debates before. That was, boy, well, it was like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now. Feels like a long time ago, but
Yeah.
anyways, I want to have you back on here more regularly. Absolutely. So let's make that happen.
Great.
Fantastic.
Brent,
and
thanks
you can
so much. And thanks, everybody.
For a few more minutes. I'm going to close out your video and just make some closing remarks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Will. All right, everybody. TLDChat Thursday is in the can with the wonderful and fabulous Will Thalheimer. And before I say goodbye to you all as well, I just wanted to remind everybody again of TLDC 18 coming up, the event. Keep an eye out for it. Sign up for our website as well. Our newsletter. Sorry about that. TLDC 18 is also connected to TLDC.us, and that's kind of the home base for everything. There's also the Facebook group, so don't forget about that. Join us in the Facebook group. And again, like I mentioned before, we also have a new membership option for you to join. We're always trying to add value to the industry as a whole, and to especially our community and our members. And this is one of the ways that we can do that. With your support, this gives us the ability to continue with the infrastructure building and improving and getting you guys more content. TLDChat will always be free to you guys, but it's not necessarily always free to us and all of the other elements of what we do. Takes a little bit of resources, and we started out just kind of asking for donations to help us out, and everybody was so fabulous in offering us up and donating some money and participating in that. And that was a good time. But I think to make everything easier, I think this a membership platform, I think, is going to be a lot easier for you guys, and a lot better for us, being able to give you guys some value. So we're looking at maybe $75 a day. 75 cents, less than $1 a day for TLDChat. And so you can take care of that by just $15 a month. Or if you want to just get it all over with, get a huge discount and pay $150 a year, that takes care of your membership for the whole entire year. Also gives you a discount on the conference. And also, it just basically tells us that you appreciate what we're doing, and it gets you that second level of membership in the community. So if you feel like you're getting some value from TLDChat and want to get some extra value as we begin to add more options and opportunities to the membership, please feel free to join and become a member, and take advantage of those extra opportunities, and just to be able to make it easier for you to say thanks for the work we do here, and all of the folks that help out in adding content and sharing a little bit of their time by taking notes and sharing links in the chat and just being active members. So we appreciate all of you for coming. Thank you so much for hanging out with us as always. This has been a fantastic day. Tomorrow we've got Video Friday with everybody's friend and mine, Sam Rogers. It's going to be fantastic. I can guarantee it. We will see you tomorrow.